I was born and raised a Shia Muslim. I grew up in a religiously saturated environment. So I practiced all the requirements of the Islamic law. I prayed my prayers. I fasted. It was at times difficult, at times very easy, because I would do it in the community. At school, we would go at noon. We were required to go to and do the prayer, and so it was a good experience growing up. I loved God, and I wanted to do all that I could to please God. I would memorize the Quran, and I loved reading it, and I loved memorizing it. It was a good experience. I still know much of it by heart. Allah was God, of course. He was a distant God. I knew that I had to please Him, and I knew that I was failing most of the times. At some stages, for example, if I was missing a prayer, I knew that I had to make up for it or I would be punished. If I was missing a fasting day in Ramadan, I knew that I would have to make up 30 days for each day or I would be punished. One of the most difficult things as a woman was the teaching that if my hair was not all covered, I would be hanged, in hell by my hair, So that was my experience growing up. I had a vision when I was 6 years old of the Virgin Mary. At the time I was in a mountain place. It was dark. I fell and I couldn't get up. I wasn't hurt or anything. I was just heavy. I just couldn't lift myself up. And there was a rock, a huge rock, and this lady came from behind the rock. She held my hand, picked me up, and she said that she was Mary. And something happened to me, some kind of warmth, something. And that stayed with me. I asked my mother who Mary was, and she said that she was the mother of Prophet Jesus, as Muslims would know her and revere her. And I just loved her. That touch was like a seed that was planted in my heart. It was a seed of love, and I just knew that I wanted to be where she was. When I was 9, I learned about Saint Bernadette. It was an old black and white movie, a 1924 movie, The Song of Bernadette. I saw such purity of love and such compassion. And when Bernadette was healed by Mary, I saw such a transformation in her life, such a devotion that she left everything behind to just serve God. And not because she had to, but because she loved God. And that was something that I had never seen or experienced as a Muslim. When I saw that changed my whole life. At that time, the only reason that I was thinking about Christianity and not Islam, not devotion to God in Islam, was because I loved Mary and I wanted to be where she was. And I knew that the church was where she was. I was desiring to go to church with all my heart. The love was just there, and I wanted to see what it's like to go to a church. I had always seen churches, but I had never dared enter a church. And we had a friend who, when I shared with him that I was interested in learning more about Christianity, he said, well, why don't you come to my church? And I went there. And my experience was the experience of arriving home. It was immediately home. It was a peace, a joy that made it be just home, where you belong. When I started going to church, the whole community became my family. I was the only Middle Eastern person in the church. But they loved me. They did anything that they could for me. And they became my true family. And they were by my side through thick and thin, all the difficulties. They supported me. They prayed for me. When I needed prayer, the whole church prayed for me. And some of them, they stayed with me and prayed with me throughout the time that I needed, constantly. So that was a sense of community that I had never experienced in Islam, the sense of oneness that we